A lot of times when you have a big family, it becomes kind of impractical to send 8 or 10 kids to college for $100,000 each, right? So why not start from the beginning, investing ideas in your children about how to be entrepreneurs, how to start their own businesses. And one of the most important things you can teach your child as a homeschooling parent is how to research and dig deeper and deeper and deeper into any topic. The thing is if you allow your kids to specialize now, they have a chance to spend years becoming the best of the best at the thing that they do. One of the main things we do as homeschoolers, it's not about teaching them science, social studies, history, geography, but helping them to discover why they are on this planet and what they were created to do. And it's not always a career. A lot of times it's a calling. When your child has a passion and they're ready to build that career, it's not always about what you do. A lot of times it's about what you don't do. And to do anything well in life, you need to know what you need to let go of. All right. What a fun day. And my kids are having an incredible time just totally blending in with your kids. Only 2 of my kids sat with me this evening because all the rest of them have already made friends. Thank you guys for that. Thank you for being so welcoming to our family and just loving us so much. What a beautiful, beautiful community. And I hope you know how rare it is that anyone would be able to experience this kind of community and family and love and connectivity. And for year after year, so many of you have been coming here to share in this time, and it's so sweet. And I thank you for having me and my family here. I'm excited about what I get to share tonight. This time I even have notes. We all pray for wisdom, don't we? And we all pray that God would provide. And when we just yield to the Lord's calling to do things like have a single income family, to homeschool our kids, to have another baby, to adopt. All these things, they put us in a position where we're relying so much on the Lord for His wisdom and His provision. And as we're raising our kids, a lot of times we want them to be equipped to be good providers for their families too, of course. But these days, in this kind of economy where most families depend on 2 incomes, we need to be creative and we need wisdom and we need ideas. And a lot of times when you have a big family, it becomes kind of impractical to send 8 or 10 kids to college for $100,000 each, right? Or get our kids into that much debt. And these days, a college degree isn't worth nearly what it was 30 or 40 years ago because everybody's got one. The market is just absolutely saturated with useless college degrees. And so then we're all back to trying to figure out how to be entrepreneurs. So why not start from the beginning, investing ideas in your children about how to be entrepreneurs, how to start their own businesses, and how to have a mindset that they can create something of value that is worth something to other people, that they could offer a service of value, they could offer a product of value, they could offer a digital item that sells in their sleep, which is one thing I've done with my kids, taught them all how to have passive income so that they can make money so they can live their calling. There's so many ways to make money these days besides getting a degree and becoming an employee. And I like to teach my kids how to be an entrepreneur from a really, really young age. Even 3, 4, and 5 years old, to give them a mindset that they can create something of value. As simple as taking a handful of glass and wooden beads worth about 30 cents, putting them on a string, and selling it for $10. This is one of the first lessons my kids learn. My son Isaac, who's running the camera today, he taught me this lesson because I love making jewelry out of glass and wooden beads. And when he's 6 or 7 years old, he decides he's going to get into my bead collection. He asked, "Mom, can I make some bracelets?" "Sure." "Why?" "I'm going to sell them." "Okay." So then he makes a ton of beautiful bracelets, and he's really gifted in pattern and design. And then after church, I noticed there's a big group of ladies gathered around my little son, and he's saying, well, they're $6 each or 2 for $10, and he sold all his bracelets to the ladies at church. And he was so excited that he could take my beads, which he didn't even have to pay for, put them on a string, and he was like, seriously, 7 years old with $120 in his pocket to buy Legos. So that was the first lesson, and he taught me. But my parents taught me similar things. My mom is an artist, and she is an artist simply because she loves to create. She loves to paint, and her hobby became something that became an income stream for our family, because my mom loved paintings. She would paint beautiful paintings to fill our house. People would come in our house and say, "That's beautiful, can you do one for me?" And then my dad turned it into a business. And just like he helped me create a business when I was a teenager, he helped my mom create a business. So I grew up going to art shows, and my parents helped me to learn how to make little things of value that I would always have spending money. And so that first lesson, that you can take a little something, make it something of value that's beautiful, practical, useful, sell that to someone else and make money. And that's just the first lesson. But as our kids grow up, we begin to watch. What are they gifted in? What are their passions? What are their talents? What are their abilities? What do they love? And I begin to just invest in those passions, invest in those desires. And instead of waiting until college for my kids to choose their major, they might choose when they're 6, 7, or 12 years old. And we begin from as soon as they say, when I grow up, I want to train horses. When I grow up, I want to be an astronaut. When I grow up, I want to be an artist. When I grow up, I want to be a missionary, a musician, a mommy, a daddy, whatever it is. When they tell you what they want to do when they grow up, that's the spark. And sometimes in that moment, you need to set aside everything else that's irrelevant to that child's passion and dream and say, okay, let's research what it takes to be an artist, to be an entrepreneur, to be a jewelry maker, to be a horse trainer, to be a musician, whatever it is that they want to be. Take it seriously. Maybe they're not going to grow up to be that thing, but here's what's going to happen. Your child is going to tell you that they're passionate about something, that they want to be a dog trainer, okay? And then you say, okay, let's go to the library and get all the books on dogs and dog training, and let's practice on the neighbor's dog if we don't have one. And what happens is your child learns to research because they're passionate. And one of the most important things you can teach your child as a homeschooling parent is how to research and dig deeper and deeper and deeper into any topic. At this point, it really doesn't matter what it is they love. And a lot of times when your kid says, I want to be a dog trainer or an artist, so many of us scoff at our kids and say, you can't make money off of that. You can't do that job. You need something stable. And we say, focus on academics so you can go to college, get good grades. And our kids end up letting go and just squashing this God-given dream and vision because each one of us is designed with a skill set, with talents, with giftings, with abilities. But standardized education says, let's just go ahead and erase all of that, start from scratch, and make every child identical. And then when they go to college, they can begin to specialize. The thing is if you allow your kids to specialize now, they have a chance to spend years becoming the best of the best at the thing that they do. For example, I tell my kids, when you're 13 or 14, we're going to invest in your first business. And we tell them this when they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, just to get them started with thinking. I mean, back when I was growing up, parents would say, oh, when you're 16, you can drive a car. And so we would look forward to being 16 and driving a car. Or when you're 13, you're allowed to do this or that. But with my kids, I would tell them, when you're 13 or 14, if you know what you want to do, we're going to get you training, we're going to get you tools, we're going to get you equipment, and we're going to invest in your first business. So when they're 10, 11, 12, they are thinking, what do I want to be? Because we actually will spend $800, $2,000, $3,000 sometimes to invest in their first business, really set them up. Because doing this when they're 13, if they can become self-sufficient, we don't have to invest $100,000 later in college because they're already turning that first little seed of that $1,000 or whatever into an income stream. And then some of my kids have gone to like Bible college or missions training, things like that once they finished high school, but they haven't needed college. They've been able to develop an income stream doing something they're passionate about so well that they make money at it, that they've been able to build an income that they could be self-sufficient. So I listen very carefully to my kids when they say what they love. Sometimes you'll get a kid who really doesn't know what they want to do. And then it's fun because then you get to introduce them to all different options. And when you meet people and your kids are there, ask them, what are your hobbies? What are your skills? What do you do for work? And just as your child's listening, they're going to find out what people do. There's a little book that I loved when I was a kid, and my husband loved it too. It was What Do People Do All Day by Richard Scarry. Did any of you guys have that book? I loved that book because it gave me an idea of what people do. All I knew is my dad worked on the space shuttle, he teaches the Bible, and my mom is an artist. And then there's teachers, and we don't like them because they boss us around. And we need to see and learn and ask questions. What do people do all day to spark curiosity in our kids? I feel like one of the main things we do as homeschoolers, it's not about teaching them science, social studies, history, geography, but helping them to discover why they are on this planet and what they were created to do. And it's not always a career. A lot of times it's a calling. So you're going to find as you get to know your kids, some of them, they have a passion for a skill. Some of them have a passion for a career, and some of them have a passion for justice, for nurture, for teaching, for rescue, for salvation. There's all different things that they can have a passion for. Listen to that. What does your child have a passion for? What is that spark? What is their element? And so as I begin to really try to get to know each child, you can pay attention because when they're doing the thing they love, when they're learning about the thing they love, when they're talking about the thing they love, they lose track of time. You guys have seen this in your kids? They're building Legos, and suddenly it's 5 hours later and they've built a spaceship. You know, the kid with ADHD that can focus on Legos for 10 hours. Any child, when they are free to do what they love, they're going to dig deeper and deeper and deeper. First, it looks like play, and then they get serious. So I'll talk about some of my kids who are here today, and then I'll talk more about the ones who aren't here. I have a daughter who did not want to do anything academic. She didn't want to learn to read, she didn't want to do math, and she was incredibly stubborn. She had only one thing she was interested in, tropical birds. Hello, Laura. And it was tropical birds all the time. And she couldn't get enough. Tropical bird books, tropical bird documentaries, videos. And seriously, from age 4 to about age 9, that was it. And her passion for the birds inspired her to learn to read, because she was just totally not interested. I could not keep her attention. She was the middle child of like 10 kids. And, middle kids, when you have 10 kids, they kind of do what they want and you don't notice. But I wanted her to be happy, and I wanted her to be joyful, and I wanted her to be learning. So I kept getting her bird books and getting her birds. Started out with some parakeets and some lovebirds. Then we moved to Hawaii, and she said, "Mom, I really want to have a parrot rescue." And I knew that she knew what she was doing, because she had been going to the library and getting like college-level African gray parrot psychology books. Did you know those exist? And so she wanted to start a bird rescue, and she was telling me all about what she wanted to do. And my dad was there. He heard that she wanted a bird rescue, and guess what? The next day, he is taking her to Home Depot and buying her everything she needs to build an aviary. And before my dad had left on that trip, Laura had an aviary. Then we posted on Craigslist that we wanted to adopt some parrots that needed to be rehomed. And suddenly we had an aviary full of birds and a bunch of parrots. She was living her dream. But I kind of worried, like, all she knows is birds. And then she gave me her Christmas list. And she's like, "Mom, it's really, really expensive, but it's the only thing I want." And I look at her Christmas list, and it's a college textbook for veterinary technician for exotic animals. It's like this thick. And I got it for her for Christmas, and she was the happiest kid in the world. And I realized something. I thought she was just learning about birds, but what she was really doing was digging so deep that the only way to satisfy her desire to research deeper and deeper was at 9 years old to be reading and studying college-level textbooks. And then, as she got older, her interests began to be a lot more diverse. She actually published 3 books, one about tropical birds and 2 on endangered species. And they're back there on the table because she needed a way to feed her birds. And when our kids want to have a pet hobby, they're not allowed to do that until they have an income stream. So this is a really good idea, guys. If your kids want a pet, say no until you have the income to take care of that animal, including vet bills, and spaying and neutering is needed, and their feed, whatever. That's a big, big motivator to get your kids thinking about starting their own business, because they can start saving up for something they really want. Doesn't have to be a pet, but I definitely don't want to take care of the 87 or whatever pets we have. I would rather take care of other things, but those are my kids' pets, and they take care of them. And they have to have an income in order to do that. But then, because Laura had studied birds on such a deep level, once she got to 12, 13, 14, now she has the vocabulary, she has the knowledge, she has the understanding of how to research, and she can apply that depth of learning to anything she wants to learn. So now she studies all sorts of things, and she is just a passionate learner. And what she does, she loves, and she's been able to actually reach millions of people through her little social media thing with her birds and things like that. So it's been neat to see her do that, and also to be a light in the world. Not every kid, though, has one passion and sticks with it year after year after year. I have a son who thought he wanted to be a personal chef. He had gone through a book of all different kinds of occupations, and he figured out that you can make the most money per hour being a personal chef doing something that's creative. And he wanted to do something creative, and he loves food, and so he decided that's what he wanted to do. So for his 13th birthday, what we did was we had a chef birthday party, and we made a wish list and gave everybody a list of all the things that he needed to be a chef. And we bought him some really nice cookbooks and a set of knives, like the knives he wanted that were like hundreds of dollar Wusthof knives. And he took very good care of those. As a blessing to myself, I gave him the opportunity to make meals for the family and let him just make whatever recipes he wanted. And at age 13, he did Thanksgiving entirely by himself for like 20 people, everything. And then the next summer, he got a job as a personal chef cooking for a woman with celiac disease. So he would go to her house once a week, and he would make a bunch of meals for her for the week. And then he decided he didn't want to be a chef. He wanted to be a voice actor, a dancer, and a music producer. So goodbye being a chef. But guess what? He has some pretty awesome skills and continued to use those skills to be a blessing in the family. And that's my son Isaac right here, who is a podcast producer, music producer, and plays how many instruments we've lost count, about as many instruments as we have pets. I was like, a dancer, a voice actor, a music producer. But you know what? He was in that crazy age 13, 14 stage where like the kids, their brains just turn into mush and you're like, where is my child? And like they can't even answer a basic question. Everything you taught them, it's gone. Thankfully, if anyone has a kid in that stage, it lasts maybe 3 months to 2 years, and then suddenly they snap out of it and they're like a normal human being again. But during that time, I just went ahead and let him work on being a music producer, a dancer, a voice actor, making documentaries and things like that. And I figured, well, these are great skills. And he got more and more and more serious about doing the music production and the documentary production. Then our family was serving in Ukraine as missionaries in 2014. And while we were there, there was a revolution and Putin attacked and things got really crazy. And it ended up that our family was crossing the border at 1 a.m. with nothing but backpacks. We had lived next to a Russian embassy that people were throwing Molotov cocktails and burning tires into the embassy by our house. And the city was just a mess, and we had to get out. So we ended up leaving and not knowing when we could get back to our home. And we stayed in Budapest for about 3 weeks, and then some missionary friends in Bosnia said, oh, why don't you come stay with us for a while? We overstayed our welcome there. They had 8 kids. We had 9. It was crazy. And so then we're like, what are we going to do? We can't get back into Ukraine. And we ended up looking at booking.com and finding the absolute cheapest place to stay in Europe, which was a random island off the coast of Croatia, where there's no cars and nobody lives there during the winter, except like maybe 50 people, because the weather's crazy. We're like, okay, it's super cheap. Let's go. And at this point, we were living off royalties from some of the books we had begun publishing, and it was just barely enough. You know, we were living on like $60 a day or something like that with 9 kids, and just waiting to get back in Ukraine because we were still paying rent on our house there. It's just one of those situations. We couldn't get back to that house for 6 months. So while we were there, we were living at a small resort that was closed for the winter, but they were happy to rent it to us. The owner of that little resort had told us, well, you guys are going to have to move out, but we made friends with somebody who had another house that hadn't been lived in for about 18 years. The house was like 900 years old. It had 1 electrical outlet and no indoor plumbing, but we were going to make it work. It was a lot of fun, a lot like camping. And the owner of the resort had mentioned to us that at their resort, they usually hire a personal chef to make meals for the guests. But the guy they usually hire wasn't able to do it. And Isaac's like, oh, I can do it. And he's like, what do you mean you can do it? And he's like, yeah, I used to be a personal chef for a lady. And so he's like, well, can you make Mediterranean food? And I don't know, he must have cooked him up some Mediterranean food. The guy believed him, and then he needed a reference. So the woman that he had done the personal chef stuff for the celiac disease wrote a beautiful letter of recommendation. He got the job. But not only did he become the personal chef, he started maintaining the pool, the turnovers, organizing the cleaning ladies, and then going out to the ship to unload all the food and all the toilet paper and everything for the resort, to the point that my 16-year-old son was managing this resort while the owner was able to just stay off island and do his thing and live his life for the 5 months that we lived in Croatia. And I share this because we invested a lot in helping him with that dream to become a chef, and he ended up deciding not to do it. I don't want you to be afraid to invest in the dream your child has and help them to build skills in that area, because if they have that dream, and they have that desire, and they have that drive, it's going to motivate them to learn skills. It's going to motivate them to dig deep. And in the future, if they have had volunteer work, internships, small jobs in that area, it's going to be something they can use on their resume and that they can get letters of recommendation from the people that they've worked for. I have another child who, looking forward to turning 13, she knew exactly what she wanted to do. She wanted to be a photographer in Hawaii. Why not? I say to my kids, dream whatever dream you want to dream. Just go for it. And if we can make it happen, we'll make it happen. If we can't, you work hard, you make it happen. And so that daughter had talked all my daughters into moving to Hawaii with her as soon as they graduated high school. And I had 6 girls in the course of about 7 years. And so they were all just one after another launching. And so I didn't know they were all planning on moving to Hawaii, but they had it all planned out. There came a time when we knew we needed to leave Ukraine, because after we had left that one war, we came back, had another baby, and then we were working at an orphanage where we met 5 of our kids and adopted them. And after adopting, we knew we needed to move away from Ukraine so we could just spend time bonding with them. We felt like, let's not do any other ministry for a year. We're just going to focus on our kids. We're just going to focus on becoming a family and helping these kids learn English and just loving them. And so we asked each of our kids individually, okay, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be? Well, they all said Hawaii. And we're like, well, let's go take a look. So we took a look. It was real pretty, and we actually found a place that was like, somehow it was in our budget with the USDA Rural Development Loan. It worked out. It cost us like $50,000, and we got an acre and a 4,500 square foot house, big enough for everybody, moved in, and then COVID happened. My daughter had a dream to be a photographer in Hawaii. Now, this daughter was my 3rd child. My first child was a really, really good student. He loved homeschooling. He loved the more classical education. He loved listening to audiobooks, and I mean, he was just a great student. He like always obeyed mom. He always listened. He just really good. You know, if you get one of those, what the next one's going to be like? Yeah. So the next one was a ball of fire. She was wild. She was always on a mission to turn everything into a giant science project or a giant art project. And there was never a day that went by without there being some massive explosion of Cheerios, red paint, cat food, bubbles somewhere in the house. I knew God had great plans for her because she feared nothing at all. The next one was my daughter Esther. And Esther was an unschooler from the beginning. And I didn't even know what unschooling was, but whenever I tried to get this one to do schoolwork, whatever she was doing was 20 levels above the intelligence of any kindergarten work I was trying to give her. Because in the beginning, I was really struggling to figure out how to homeschool all these different kids with different personalities. And so I'm trying to get Esther to do a kindergarten workbook, and she's like charting the weather and making graphs and raising snakes in her closet and like all these kinds of things. She was just doing all sorts of deep research, amazing things. And she did not have permission to raise snakes in the closet, though. It's a whole nother story we don't have time for. But she was a kid who, whatever she set her mind on, she was going to do it. And I remember one day, I took my 3 oldest kids out for ice cream, and I said, Isaac, Anna, Esther, what is your favorite thing in the world? Isaac said something like, it's a toss-up between ice skating and chili. Anna said, well, that's easy, ice cream, because whatever is in front of Anna is her favorite thing, and it was ice cream at that moment. And Esther, she's 7 years old, and she's like, oh, that's easy, research. She loved research, and she had decided that she was going to be a photographer. And so when she turned 13, we helped her get some high-quality equipment and began to just give her books and videos and tutorials about being a photographer. And we ended up just setting aside everything that was irrelevant to photography, because when you're really going deep into photography, it's art, it's numbers, it's everything. And so as she was studying photography, we just knew that we needed to let go of like all the other high school standards because she was so immersed in this. We ended up moving to Hawaii, and she started an Instagram account. We usually don't let our kids on social media till they're like 17 years old unless they have a really, really good reason because they're going to run a business or something. So she started her photography business. She started out doing photography shoots for free, and then she started charging $200 a shoot, and then $400, and then $600. And it's just like, she's a teenager, and she's becoming one of the most popular photographers on the island. And by the time she turned 18, she was self-sufficient financially and moved to Oahu to build her business. This past year, her photography was featured in People magazine and on one of the screens in, the big square in New York City. Times Square, New York City. And she travels all over the world doing photography. But when your child has a passion and they're ready to build that career, it's not always about what you do. A lot of times it's about what you don't do. And to do anything well in life, you need to know what you need to let go of. And for all of us that are spread way too thin, sometimes we just need to be willing to let go of everything that's irrelevant to the calling, to the goal, to the marriage, to the homeschooling, to what God has put on your heart, because this world puts so much pressure on us to be what we weren't created to be, to do what we weren't created to do. And when you know what God has called you to, you need to lay aside everything that hinders and become that person that He's called you to be. And so often we are just spread way too thin because we're taking on way too much. And when we feel like, I have a child, my child is incredibly gifted in the arts, has a big heart for Jesus, wants to bring Jesus to her generation. Oh, but she needs to spend 7 hours a day on biology, geography, trigonometry, language arts, and learning a foreign language. Guess who's not going to be developing her talents in the arts and bringing everybody to Jesus through her music? Because we humans are finite and we cannot be spread this thin. The public school is different from your calling to raise your child. But so often we make the mistake of trying to replicate what's happening in the public school because that's the track to college and that's what makes us feel most comfortable. But we have an incredible opportunity for our kids to begin now the thing that they're going to do for a lifetime so that they can get really, really, really good at it now. And I'm going to wrap this up pretty quick, but people aren't always going to pay you to do your passion. A lot of times people think, oh, I want to do my passion, I want to do what I love, and I want to get paid to do it. Guess what? Sometimes that is not going to happen. People are not always going to pay you to do your passion of playing Minecraft, okay? Sometimes they will. You may be the one that breaks through. And when our kids have a passion, and you look at that passion, you say, well, this isn't realistic. This isn't something they can build a life on. that passion can be the motivating force for them to do something to fuel and fund that passion. And when they're a kid, let them go for it. My daughter Naomi is passionate about horses. Just like my daughter Laura is passionate about birds. All she ever wanted to do was horses. And I told her, okay, well, when you're 13, you can get a horse. If you can pay for it, you can find a place for it to live, and you can take care of it. I'm like, hey, why not? Can't we tell our kids, yeah, you can have a horse if you can pay for it, find it a place to live, and feed it, and pay the vet bills? But you need to have an income source to be able to do that. She's turning 14, and all she's ever done is study horses. But we go to the bookstore, and she's like, Mom, I need books on marketing and business. And I'm like, okay, why are you suddenly interested in marketing and business? She's like, well, because I need money to buy my horse. I'm like, okay, well, let's go. And we got a bunch of books off the shelf, and we spread them out on the bookstore floor, and she's looking at all the different ones. I'm like, okay, well, pick a couple that you like. She ends up spending a couple hours just going through these books, and then she takes like 9 of them. And then for the next couple of months, she is just immersed in these books, some of the most current books on business, finance, budgeting, economics, marketing, social media. A couple of weeks before her birthday, and she's like, okay, Mom, I'm ready for you to invest. I need $1,400. I'm like, I'm not buying your horse. And she's like, no, I have 30 orders. I need the materials to make the stuff. I'm like, what do you mean you have 30 orders? She's like, yes. I opened an ecological dog accessories shop, and I have 30 orders. Like, what do you mean you opened an ecological dog accessories shop? She's like, yep. Esther helped me open an account on Instagram, and I did a dog model search, and then I made dog leashes, and I sent them to all the people, and they did modeling with my products with their dogs, and now I have 30 orders. Like, what are you selling these for? Like $45 each for a dog leash. And she's like, but I need the materials. And so we buy the materials. Most of the money was in a sewing machine that sews leather and some other major equipment she needed. She makes these things. And every week, this 14-year-old kid is taking a laundry basket full of dog leashes to the post office to ship out. She even gets people to pay shipping. I'm like, she was motivated. So before long, she had saved up like $4,000 or so, and she had found the horse, found a place to board it. But the place was 30 minutes away by bus. I'm like, I'm not driving you. She's like, I don't care, I'll take the bus. Okay, go for it. So she gets the horse, she boards it, she pays for the feed, she pays for the boarding, she pays for the vet bills, and she still does all that and makes like $17,000 profit from her business. So I share these stories that you wouldn't be afraid to really say yes to your kids when they want to pursue something that you maybe don't have the same vision for because you grew up in a different paradigm. But trust and take time to just think, is what I'm requiring my child to do truly relevant to their future? Some things are. I make all my kids do some grammar, some budgeting, some spelling, and definitely worldview and Bible. But when it comes to things like science, social studies, geography, and history, language arts, it is so easy to teach all these subjects through their passions. One thing I've done to just make it easy for my kids to study their passions is I began working with my kids to create curriculum so that if they want to study something specific, we would make a research journal about that specific thing that prompts them to research that thing, make a portfolio of everything they're learning, to collect a library full of books, videos, documentaries about the thing they want to research, so that I can guide their learning and be intentional about it. So we brought a bunch of the books that we made for our kids, and they're really library-based research journals. They're not things that you grade. They're things that kids create. They're creating a scrapbook and a portfolio of their learning so they can dig deep into the things they want to do with their life. And whatever it was that my kids ever wanted to do and learn and study, we have a book on it. And I began just making these books for my kids, but I was printing them through Amazon because you can do Amazon's print on demand. And so I would create a book, put it on Amazon, and order it for my kids. But just in case anybody else was interested, it was available to the world. About 3 months after I published the first 12 books, my husband gets a check from Amazon for like $3,000 or $5,000. I can't remember the exact amount. He's like, why do we have a check for like $5,000 from Amazon? What did you do? And I'm like, I don't know, let's look. And it turned out that the books I had made so my kids could research their passions and careers and sneak in all the important academics were selling like crazy. And people had even started making Facebook groups about how to use them that I wasn't even part of because we were living in Ukraine and I had 2 babies with whooping cough. And so I was not paying attention to selling any books. My kids were all happily doing their schoolwork without help from mom because of the system I had created. I was taking care of my 2 sick babies. In the meantime, my books were making like an extra $5,000 a month. Then my kids were like, can we make books too and make money? And they did. And a lot of those books back there are books that they helped to create, and they have passive incomes because of that. And a lot of the books fund their careers and their businesses. But I want to encourage you to really embrace the mindset of raising kids for a calling, for a career, for entrepreneurship, even now. And if they have a desire to go to college, start studying those careers now too. But I really would encourage you to get the book, Whatever Happened to Penny Candy, our book, How to Make Money. Read books by the Tuttle twins. They're really good too. And if you have a kid that has no idea what they're interested in, we have a book called How to Make Money that I made for my kids. You study about 100 different careers, you research them all, and then you pick 10. You research them deeper, and you narrow it down to 5, and then you interview somebody who does those jobs, figure out which ones to pursue, and then you pursue them. And this book, How to Make Money, guides a teenager through that process. All About Money is a book that my son and his wife wrote to help you guys teach your kids about economics, business, marketing, how the government impacts our finances, all sorts of things. And these are just great tools for equipping your kids, because in an economy and in a society like this, we really need to think outside the box.